Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And let me extend a very warm welcome to you to yet another open house. This is very special because of the presence of an extraordinarily special individual. Our Honourable Finance Minister, who has distinguished herself with deep thought, with gravitas, with clarity, with transparency, and with vision. All of us in India are blessed to have her as the Finance Minister. Thank you, Madam, for being with us. Thank you for inspiring us. Thank you for guiding us. The first budget for Prime Minister Modi and the Honourable Finance Minister in the third term, and your seventh, is full of encouragement for us in industry. Full of encouragement to create employment, to do investment. Your thrust on agriculture, your thrust on infrastructure, your thrust on MSMEs, your focus on the development of Eastern India, your focus on simplification of tax laws, your attention to reduction of stamp duties in states where they are high, your plans for solar rooftop, pumped storage, the comprehensive economic policy reform. I can go on and on. There are many points, and fortunately for us, even though we want to say ye dil mange more, there is not more that we can ask for. So many good features, decriminalization, etc., etc. And I mean, if I actually prepared a list, I could go on and on and on. To sum up, the first budget of this government, the third term of Prime Minister Modi, builds on his commitment to growth, inclusion, and next generation reforms. It also sets the tone and the blueprint to realize the objective of Viksit Bharat in 2047. Clearly, achhe din for the nation, achhe din for the economy. Once again, thank you, Madam Finance Minister, and over to you.
Thank you very much. This is the first time I think I'm attending this open house, a small, intimate gathering. And at a time when there's just a lot of discourse on the budget, most of which are really getting into the details of what has been said and what has not been mentioned in the speech, but what has been covered otherwise in the budget, going through the details. But to have this one, I think I would say it's not yet another discussion session, because I find the audience a very discerning gathering. And I therefore would place a lot more importance for the exchange of ideas, thoughts, and as much as possible from my side, I'll try to put forward things which, or issues which will be in the nature of clarifying things. But as an opening statement, I want to highlight the fact that this budget is, first of all, futuristic. If actually many things which have been said in the speech, but even more things which have not been said in the speech but are there in the document, what had been mentioned by the Prime Minister, that we are looking at a futuristic India and the necessary action that is required at this stage for building that futuristic India, that is towards 2047. So first of all, the initial markers were all laid out even in the vote on account. So for those who want to have a lot of spice in the discussion, who think, oh, this has been done for the two alliance partners, let them please themselves. I have no problem with that. But it is a matter of fact that even during the vote on account, a good indication was given what is on store in store for the July budget. After all, the vote on account was, and I was also commented upon for it, the vote on account was strictly for running the business of the government. We had just indicated one program which was of importance, and that was the PM Suryodaya. Other than that, it had nothing. It was purely the grammar book vote on account. But we indicated that in the July budget, there will be a clear, wider picture of what is in store for the rest of the year and also for the next 5 years. And that is exactly what we've done now. Drawing from the vote on account, subsuming everything that has been said in it, and here bringing in a lot more clarity about what is the Amritakal first budget and third term first budget. A third term which is historic because a Prime Minister continuing in his role for the third term, having done 10 years of good work, reforms, and emphasized on continuity, stability in government. So when we come back, it is certainly a big message for which we thank the people of India, recognizing that this government should continue to be there is the votes or the mandate. Now, therefore, even in the Rashtrapati's Bhashan and subsequently at the beginning of the session, PM himself has very clearly said this will have a lot of roadmap related details. Now, if you ask me to tell what is that vision, what is that futuristic, clearly the steps towards getting India have a lead advantage in research, R&D for private sector, space sector, money has been given and a plan has been drawn where it is not just going to be government, it will also be bringing in small and big players to come into this area, and for which government will support, and initial allocations have been made. Equally, placing emphasis on Industry 4.0, readiness of our youth for it. If not, how are we going to bring that kind of a dimension in skilling them, not just skilling them in the old traditional, old India's requirements, but the new industry's requirement for skilling. And therefore, the skilling that we've been talking about in the 5-item package for youth is the skilling for readying youth for skills which are required by the industry. So it's not come, do just your foundry work and then go back. It is going to be AI driven, but equally labor intensive units which also have to modernize, but yet India's typical solution for a blend of technology and use of manpower. So training for those and bringing a lot of advantage of research and technology into agriculture, factor productivity and factor related reforms, which despite all that, I'll have introductions telling me about my budgets earlier. We did not touch on factor reforms, although we've been talking about it, but now we've specifically said what are the few for land related matters, what are the few for capital related matters. So factor reforms have really taken a big place in this budget. And in that, of course, a lot of work has to be done together with the states. We've even indicated as to how we are possibly engaging with the states to seek them to be on board on these kind of reform steps. It's not going to be easy. We'll have to work with the states, keep persisting with certain objectives which are for the nation's good. And there are no center and state politics in this. So when I say futuristic, there are such things which we can take on board and understand that we are just not using the word without having done the work there. And in this, repeatedly, industry together with the government, state governments together with the industry and with the central government, is the repeated message that it is not a central government's only action plan, it is involving everybody. Other than that, of course, we are looking at data and data-related urgency, with a sense of urgency, data-related work that we have to do, and the benefits of use of data are also being highlighted in this budget. Of course, we are still continuing with the emphasis on infrastructure, public expenditure to build public utilities and also greater connectivity and so on. So when people repeatedly ask me about, but what about rural distress? What about rural consumption demand? What about small savings? I think we repeatedly have explained that if government puts a rupee somewhere, the multiplier effect is what is going to have a spin-off in every one of these areas. So there's no way in which I change the course and say, all right, all these while when we're coming out of COVID, we placed emphasis on capex and public expenditure. Now we are changing tack because everybody is worried about, all of us want to have development reaching every corner of the country, for which I need to take connectivity, not just road, but also digital connectivity to every corner of the country, so that even before people understand that they have to come to the city for something, they know what it takes to do business with different parts of the country, inclusive of their own state capitals and so on. So there has been a comprehensive look at the kind of things that we can start off with, and that is where this budget, although it pertains to the rest of the 8 months, it indicates the direction of the next 5 years and then go further. One thing which, because all of you all are in industry, most of the audience here understand the emphasis that we'll have to lay on fiscal prudence, transparency in governance. We have very clearly indicated, and our fiscal deficit number could have been retained at 5.1. You wouldn't have been unhappy. But I'm sure when we showed that we are conscious, every moment conscious, that one, we need to have the bang for every buck that we spend, but equally we also have to handle the macroeconomic issues with a greater sense of responsibility. And the word given, which is what I said one of the media houses yesterday, the word given post-COVID and the trajectory given for fiscal deficit, fiscal management totally, the glide path has been honored in each one of the budget afterwards. We have not sort of found the easiest excuse to say, no, I need to spend here, so please forget it. We have kept the glide path. And have also probably untypically given a line and assurance saying next year we'll still reach the number that we had given ourselves even earlier. So a forward signaling also has been given for those who are looking for it. And further, I was astonished to find in some newspapers today, no, there should be greater clarity on how this debt management is going to work in place of fiscal deficit. The matter is still in the parliament. Just wait, we'll talk more about it. We've already given you an indication after 26 what would be the question. We've given you an indication after 26 what. Emphasis, as was given in, let us say, the N.K. Singh committee report, emphasis on debt reduction. Because I find also many countries abroad and states within India, not to blame anybody, if your debt management is handled with a larger purpose, and you're not just borrowing to repay your debt or pay the interest, or flash it away in revenue expenditure related items, and your quality of expenditure is also not assessed, then no good being fixated on that number, oh, I need to reach this number of fiscal deficit. And that is where we've indicated, post the glide path fully having been serviced, post that what, we've given you an indication. We need greater clarity. As we go along, we'll do that. So that's the long and short of it. There's of course always the tax-related interesting debates which go on. We'll participate in that because nothing done in the finance ministry. At least I can tell you under Prime Minister Modi, nothing done is done just with the back of the envelope calculations. We go through rigorously. We talk with people who are concerned in these areas. And only then, not for revenue considerations, I underline that. More for ease of doing business, more for simplification, more for rationalization. Have we brought changes in the tax? It's not been increased because I want more money. And it's not been increased for everything. Every asset class has to be treated similarly and nothing more. So I'm sure that gives you a picture of what I want to say in the opening remarks, but I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Madam. As usual, clear, forthright, and forward-looking. Thank you so much. If I may, I'd like to ask one question which does not directly pertain to the budget, but pertains to policy making. The government had set up independent regulators with the idea of them being genuinely independent of the politics behind the state government administrations. But sadly, over the last few years, the power or the effective appointment of these regulators is done by the state governments or those in power at the state governments, thereby giving the authority in a way to the state governments to effectively control the decisions of these so-called independent commissions. And this is actually once again getting the politics into the economics of the decision making. It impacts the sentiment certainly behind certain parts of investment, for example, say in the power sector. Even though lots has been done and fantastic work, but the independence of regulators is certainly not complete. And therefore, it's not really a question, but it's a request that at the policy level, could the independence of the regulators be restored? I will open up this question and answer to the floor. I'm going to ask a very young member of the audience to start. Shashwat.
Honourable Minister, very good morning. Tuesday's budget is a budget that will enhance India's transformation. It's progressive, it's inclusive, and it's balanced. Truly a budget that sets the key pillars for us to become a Viksit Bharat, a futuristic India. Honourable Minister, in the budget you mentioned that nuclear energy is expected to form a significant part of the energy mix for a Viksit Bharat. So my question is, how do you foresee the private sector participating, and what would be the mechanics of the private sector participation? This is something that we are very excited and enthused about, and I'd love to learn more. Thank you.
I'm happy to say that the mention of nuclear energy is after having heard from our own scientists in the government that modular units setting up and the formulation for operation and running it are completely indigenized, and Indian technology, Indian way of doing it is already and available. And it is only with that confidence given by our own scientists, we thought we should push ahead with this, because for a growing India and at the speed with which we are growing and we aspire to keep that momentum, the energy mix has to be diversified. And that is the reason why, despite our clamor to do things to meet and keep up every commitment given in Paris or in Edinburgh, we are going in that route. But beyond that, also, there's so much to do, and that is where the nuclear energy subject comes to play. And with this mention, we expect the private sector also to engage with the government, with the atomic energy, with Baba Atomic Bark, and get an understanding of it. We would actively encourage private sector participation.
Thank you so much.
I will shift to one of the largest players in the renewable energy sector, wind energy, Devansh Jain.
Good morning, madam. I had the good fortune of actually being in Parliament when the budget was in progress. We came with YPO. So while it was a very, very futuristic and forward-looking budget, it was also entertaining to see some of the opposition members doing what they were doing. Having said that, madam, my question was more around the fact that there's so much mention of energy transition in the budget and such a massive focus on renewable energy by Modi ji. You know, but the GST on wind and solar is at 12%, and majority of the inputs are at 18%, leading to a lot of accumulation, and the cost of power is actually going up because of that. So it was a request and a suggestion, if we could correct the inverted duty structure, that would reduce the cost of power.
I think I mentioned it in the budget also. The GST rationalization attempt is not just to rationalize the rates, but also to simplify the processes and correct every inversion.
Sure. That will be. Thank you, ma'am.
I'm going to shift my attention to a woman who showed us how to transform healthcare, Preetha Reddy.
Namaste, and congratulations on an amazing budget, madam. It was both politically and economically right and futuristic, so thank you for that. I really appreciate the fact that you focus so much on employment for youth and the youth of India, because they really are the future, and if we don't give them active employment and things to do, there may be dire consequences. And I really am grateful to you for doing that. It is truly futuristic. From the sector, I think we've come a long way, and with every budget you've given a little bit to healthcare, so we're grateful to that. But I would, again, you know, when you get a chance, you want to ask. So what I'm saying is that you've done for the cancer drugs, you've done zero import for some of the cancer drugs, which is phenomenal. But the radiation equipment, you know, India should become Atmanirbhar. We should manufacture this equipment, but we're, you know, a long way from that. But that is a huge drain on people, just the cost of the equipment and the duty on it. So my request is that since you've been really generous and given it for the drugs, could you please consider the radiation equipment? And I think more on the skilling, especially for the services, because there was a lot of talk on AI replacing people's skills and people being jobless. But I'd like to assure you that as far as healthcare is concerned, we really need more people in the sector, because it is the hands, it is the feet on the ground which we need. So if we could focus on that. You've given a lot. I think we have to pick it up and run with it. So thank you, and a little bit more for the radiation.
I think we'll continue with the CapEx, because there's no way in which you can be sure that the recovery and the growth is complete and it'll sustain for itself. We'd like to be sure that the public spending actually does the job of bringing public infrastructure and bettering it as well. So it is not a temporary solution that we thought is required post-COVID. India still has infrastructure deficit in some parts of the country. When I say that, it's not just roads. Look at the pace in which we are building ports. We are also trying to modernize our ports. Look at the way in which what started off as an Udan experiment for interlinking airports, restoring some of just the airstrips and not airports, and so on, today has got so much traction. The growth of India's aviation sector has been enabled by this Udan scheme, if I can say that. And therefore, connectivity is not just building roads. You also have the optical revolution that India has seen, optical fiber revolution, as a result of which internet is reaching the remotest corners before even, dare say, roads have reached. And as a result, today you see that the purchasing power of people in farthest corners are not waiting for the government schemes, but with the internet connectivity, they are able to access, and also investment in open network for digital commerce and so on. So infrastructure still has a lot of work to do. So I wouldn't be in a hurry to say, can I shut that shop? No. So of course that doesn't mean we'll keep doing it and we'll not have a view on private sector investment. We will want that to be ramped up, there's no doubt. India needs all that momentum. So, and I'm sure the industry has at least given me the feeling that in the last two budgets, whenever I interact with them, they are aware of their role, not just for building nation building, but their own businesses have the brightest opportunity now within India, produce here and also export. So industry, I'm sure, is conscious, and they would still be engaging, and I'm probably not measuring the investments that they've made in the last few years. On the taxation issue, I want to be clear that I'll hear all these comments, but that finance bill, which was presented on 23rd, is the property of the parliament now. I have no business to comment on it outside to say, no, I presented that, but now because I've had a couple of suggestions coming, I'm going to do this. No way, it has to be a discussion in the House, or any comment made newly from what has not been said there will have to be said back again in the House. I can't comment about it outside.
I'm going to shift to the big boss of FICCI and the de facto chairperson of JK Corporation, Harshpati Singhania.
Mr. Chairman, you put me in the spot. But first of all, good morning, Nirmala ji. I want to compliment you on a balanced budget, is that what I would say. I'd like to call out on a couple of things which I really liked. One was the whole emphasis on reduction of litigation. Now, this is something, as you know, so many minor issues are stuck, and you're actually taking the initiative to say that was a great thing, and I'd applaud you for that. The second one was about women. And you, I think, I don't remember the figures, but I think somewhere you said between 2 or 3 lakh crores. 3 lakh crores is the figure you said is embedded in various initiatives. So that is a great thing because we need to take them along. The third one is about the MSMEs. On that, I'll take the liberty of the chairman to just say one thing, which is not really budget, but again, policy related. We are seeing, I think any policy making that we do should be seen from the point of view of competitiveness. And you use the word competitiveness several times in your budget. Ease of doing business and competitiveness. And we have a neighbor who has huge capacities. And with European markets in real trouble, the US has put a lot of tariffs. India becomes one of the natural targets for goods and services, particularly manufacturing, to come into the country. So we have to be safeguarding ourselves on that. There are various measures, fiscal, non-fiscal, and also policy measures. So I just draw your attention to that, ma'am. And that could be one of the reasons why you are seeing corporate profits being a bit muted. And if corporate profits are muted, it will have impact on tax revenues. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Harsh. Another young member who's very conscious about the greening of the atmosphere and deeply involved with the entertainment sector, Avarna Jain.
Good morning, Madam Minister. So we've seen a lot of focus on green energy, renewables, wind, solar. My question to you is slightly different. What are the future prospects we can expect in coming budgets to actually alleviate the problem of pollution? This directly impacts not even the youth, but the children that we have today who will be the youth tomorrow. So is there scope in this for private-government partnership to actually help alleviate this problem?
May not have had some or a few mentions in the speech, but we are trying to work with cities. I think there was one mention about some, or two mentions about cities and the way in which the plannings are happening and so on, and also using urban planning to have a better city built and so on. But on the specific issue of pollution and managing the city's waste and so on, or cities' emissions and so on, there are quite a few states which are coming forward. And our idea was also to, and it still continues to be, that we should avail of external assistance, so that with some technical assistance from these agencies, we should be able to have better management of air quality and a better waste management, because waste dumps are also emitting such toxicity. So there are plans which I have not certainly mentioned in my speech, and probably sketchily finds its place in some of the statement of accounts. But yes, from this year you will see a lot of such programs which center together with some states will be doing it. I am not picking and choosing the states. States which come voluntarily, we are working with them.
A man who's turned into one of the shrewdest investors in the country, Sunil Munjal.
Let me add my compliments to the many you heard here, to a budget which didn't actually surprise us, because we were hoping that you would show continuity and the forward-looking budget. So compliments and congratulations for having achieved this. What actually many of us have said, and I've said repeatedly on media, is the delightful reaction, and of course the actual fact of doing it is maintaining the fisc where you did, and also announcing you will bring it down further by 50 basis points next year. I also liked your comment, by the way, I don't know who's making noise about the debt management. I think it's a very smart move. And you're saying that year on year, every year, debt as a percentage of GDP will drop, the government debt. I think it's very welcome. It will give room for industry, and we do want the private sector to play a bigger role. I think that is almost a certainty to get leg up on with this. May I also suggest, because of the politics world over, which has become fairly adversarial, and we are seeing the same thing here in India as well, that you have a number of issues we have spoken about for a few years. We have attempted to improve them, whether it's agriculture, education, etc. Could you consider setting up a GST type of councils? There are 5 or 7 areas, actually there are 6 areas exactly, which would really benefit from a combined working of states and center, regardless of the politics behind the governance of each of them. And that could give us a fairly good implementation of the ideas as they are designed in your budget or policies other than the budget. And we do hope that there are many policies which are coming, as you said. The budget is frozen, so there's not much you can do except back in Parliament. We do hope you will look at figuring out a way of addressing some of the issues, for example, what Shireen raised on the earlier investments made by people for capital gains tax and things of this nature. But would you consider bringing back agriculture? So that was an amazing policy that got announced, which unfortunately faced amazing resistance. Is there any thinking of being able to bring back such good policies for implementation, working together with the states?
Working together with the states is definitely being taken up on very many grounds, and I'm sure tomorrow's Niti Aayog meeting is also one of the forum where such matters will be discussed. So let's hope, yes, the center is keen on pushing many issues which are necessary for India to untie itself with certain baggages with which we've lived for a long time. And that untying cannot be done just by the center. It has to happen together with the states. And therefore, there is a lot of talking to one another, center and us and the states together talking on these issues. There's no doubt in my mind about the necessity for the two of us to engage, the states and the center. Let's see how quickly and how efficiently it can move and deliver.
Just one more, if you don't mind. The urban agglomerations as economic engines are something that's been used very effectively by many countries. And I think it was a wonderful start that you made by identifying 100 cities. Could you push that into the next stage at the start itself? Say, identify so many of them to pick 20,000 or 50,000 crores of bonds. Let the center help the cities, not just the states. Help the city raise the bonds, because that can transform India in many different ways as we go along. Because we do need more funding from the center to go into the rural areas.
See, it's not for want of intent. The center or even those cities, the agglomerations, it's more, I think, first building the necessary capacity in those cities to be able to manage these kind of matters. So most often you are helping the administration, the local bodies, to understand how to handle such situations and then get into the act. Because except for one or two municipalities, even the municipal bond issue that we picked up is slow in progress, whereas there are one or two of them who have done extremely well. So the same thing which I keep saying to states also, when I'm talking about being ready for big ticket proposals, being ready for bidding those for World Bank or ADB's assistance. Some states do it extremely well and others don't. Not because they don't want. Matter of fact, they don't have capacities there. We need to ramp up on those first before, even as you say, and I appreciate that point, we need to speedily deliver on these sort of things.
Can I shift to Mr. Nilesh Shah, the Managing Director of Kotak?
Hi, good morning, ma'am. First of all, thank you for taking safe harbor clause in the budget as pre-budget consultation. We'll ensure that we give you enough feedback to ensure that all those people come back to India to manage money. One feedback from market side, ma'am, when you're giving divestment, please give priority to low floating stock PSUs. There the valuations have gone up on the higher side. If you supply, those prices will get corrected and there will be proper market discovery. And one early warning signal, ma'am, with the reduction in gold import duty, and we are importing about 700 tons of gold, that's about $35 to $40 billion. With reduction in import duty, gold imports will rise, and we expect price of gold also to appreciate. It should not happen that our gold import bill starts exceeding our oil import bill. The stress will be slow, but please keep a watch on the same.
The Finance Minister has been very generous with her time. I think we will need to wind up soon. So really the last question of the session. Anas Junaid.
Thank you for the opportunity. Just as a young first generation entrepreneur, I really found the budget very balanced and very futuristic as well. The very fact that you could just abolish angel tax, it really helps, gives a lot of relief to investors like us who invest in early stage startups. And the space fund is amazing. It's very futuristic and very much required. There's one request that I want to, one point that I want to highlight is, if you look at the semiconductor landscape, China has about 36 unicorns. US has about 4 to 5 unicorns. India has none. So have you thought about how government can support like the way you're doing for space tech for the semiconductor industry?
I think some efforts have been made. I don't know if what you have in your mind, but the moment questions of this nature are asked, I'm eager to know what are the other things that we can do. So I would be happy to get your input on it and see what best we can do. Because our intent is to support semiconductors, there's no doubt. And semiconductors at every level. So do let us know.
Thanks, Minister.
I think we must bring the session to a close. Honourable Finance Minister, you've just been, in one word, fantastic. Thank you for everything that you've done for the nation, for encouraging us constantly, for giving us policies that give us the impetus to invest. Most of us are thinking, planning, and actually investing more than we've ever done in the past. And that is thanks to the confidence that we have in Prime Minister Modi and the policies followed by his government and your leadership. So no words of thanks are enough. Thank you very much. A great honor, a great privilege. Truly, truly, truly special. Thank you.